An Afghanistan-born American sought in connection with a series of bombings that wounded 29 people in the New York City area over the weekend is in custody after a gun battle with police on Monday. Ahmed Khan Rahami of Elizabeth, New Jersey was captured after firing at police officers in Linden, New Jersey. In addition to the two incidents, officials are probing a backpack containing bombs found in a New Jersey train station on Sunday. Well, now joining us to discuss this is Chris Hedges. He's a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, a columnist at Truthdig. He was a former Middle East bureau chief for the New York Times and has reported extensively from the occupied Palestinian territories. Thanks so much for joining us.
Sure.
He was not listed on U.S. terrorism databases, 3 U.S. officials told Reuters. I want to talk about the response of the 2 major presidential candidates, but before we get there, is this the type of attack that we can stop, that we can prevent? Or, what should the response be?
Well, the response should be the end of the occupation in the Middle East and the cessation of saturation bombing by drones and military aircraft and missiles of parts of Iraq and Syria and Pakistan and Yemen and Somalia. I'm actually surprised it took this long.
So the major presidential candidates, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, traded jabs over who would be tougher on terrorism and whose presidency ISIS would prefer. This is a clip of Hillary Clinton accusing Donald Trump of helping the Islamic State militants recruit more fighters.
We know that a lot of the rhetoric we've heard from Donald Trump has been seized on by terrorists, in particular ISIS. They want to use that to recruit more fighters to their cause by turning it into a religious conflict.
So, Chris, what's your response to Hillary Clinton's statements today?
Well, the Clintons, along with Barack Obama, along with George W. Bush, are the people who created this process of endless war in the Middle East. Clinton was the chief lobbyist for the intervention in Libya itself. The rhetoric of a Trump, the rhetoric of a Clinton is largely irrelevant to ISIS. They don't need it. People in cities like Raqqa are being attacked by sorties of U.S. jets almost on a daily basis. Militarized drones are terrorizing people in whole parts of the Middle East. Cruise missiles launched primarily from ships onto Libya and other parts of Iraq and Syria. The rhetoric is the least of it. The kind of widespread killing that's been going on now for 15 years has radicalized whole segments of the Middle East and is the most kind of potent recruiting weapon that the jihadists have. The rhetoric of a Trump or Clinton is, I don't think, even a factor.
And so the suspect was born in Afghanistan. We just passed the 15th year anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. We're approaching the anniversary of the U.S. invasion of Afghanistan. What do you think that Americans should be reflecting on at this time when we're trying to address the roots of terrorism?
Well, the tragedy is that the media, partly because of the security situation, but also because of the collapse of the media in particular, the ability to carry out foreign coverage, has very little idea of what's happening in the Middle East, in countries like Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, and the state terror that is triggering jihadist terror. It's a big black hole. I think that we're woefully unaware, and it's not our fault, it's the fault of the press, of what's been happening, what we've been doing, and why people would be pushed to this level of rage to strike back.
But another topic I wanted to ask you about is, today it was announced the first presidential debate at Hofstra University next week will exclude the third-party candidates, Jill Stein and Gary Johnson, who are actually against U.S. intervention and the military occupation of the Middle East, as you described it. Do you think that that's something that people should be seizing on and demanding the increasing of this debate and and the dialogue around these issues?
Well, yes, of course. I mean, the debate corporation is run by the two major political parties and intentionally excludes any candidate who critiques empire, critiques globalism, neoliberalism, austerity, all of those programs that have been carried out internally as an assault, especially on the working class and the poor, and increasingly the middle class, and also those people who would critique our military adventurism abroad. Those voices are just not heard. They're not heard, as you correctly pointed out, by pundits, most of whom are on the payroll of companies like Raytheon or Halliburton, or have a vested interest in arms sales. I think it's important to note that as with the expansion of NATO in Eastern Europe, it makes no logical sense to continue these wars. We've lost the war in Afghanistan. The Taliban controls more territory now than when we went in. The Afghan army is as useless as the Iraqi army. But it doesn't matter in a way, because profits, which have quadrupled since the attacks of 9/11 on these arms companies, Boeing and Lockheed Martin and everything else, it's a good business. And just as the expansion of NATO has opened up new arms markets, these wars in the Middle East, I think a Tomahawk cruise missile costs about $1.1 million. We dropped over about 130 of them in the first few days of Libya. I mean, that's $500 million. And so that's kind of what it's been reduced to. And the two candidates, both Trump and Clinton, are not going to challenge this futile and wasteful and tragic endless kind of military operation throughout the Muslim world. And those candidates that will raise those questions, of course, are silenced and don't have a voice. And that's completely intentional on the part of the two parties.